Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Queensborough Community College. My name is Mike Dolan. I am a teacher in the English department here at Queensborough. And prior to working at Queensborough, I worked for Con Edison for a number of years. I wanted to take the opportunity here to welcome some of the students who are visiting us today. We have 54 eighth graders from Holy Child Jesus School. Hello. Thank you for coming. We have some students from the Satellite High School who my one-on-one class will be working with as far as doing some writing exercises. And I noticed that there are some students here from my one-on-one class and prior one-on-one classes. So I wanted to welcome you all. We also have the opportunity to have some pretty distinguished speakers here today. Our first speaker is going to be Dr. Sarah Daisy Engoron from the Biological Sciences Department. We have three people from Con Ed. This microphone. Three people from Con Ed that are here. Jenny Brito, Rika Johnson, and Nadine Southwell. Three engineers from Con Ed who I had the pleasure of working with many years ago. And they are going to relate. And last, we have Dr. Maria Mercedes Franco from the math department to round out our STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Okay, and before we proceed with my little presentation and get you to actually hear what these distinguished speakers have to say about careers in STEM, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank two people who have been a great help to me over the course of my second career here at Queensborough. First is Susan Madera, who none of this would take place if Susan didn't help me. Susan has been invaluable to me in so many different ways. I come up with the great ideas, and she makes them happen. The other person I'd like to thank is my dear friend, Jenny Brito. Jenny has been coming to my classes since I started here in 2009. She's been here 6 of 9 semesters to speak to my class about science, about engineering, and even about the importance of writing as a tool in your career. So thank you all very much. Okay, so we are here to discuss the idea of women in STEM. The traditional, here's the program that we're going to follow. Just a welcome, encouraging STEM education of women. Why does anybody think that that's important? Why is STEM education of women something significant? The reason this all came about is because I'm teaching a one-on-one English class that is comprised 75% of young women. And because it's a STEM class, which means science, technology, engineering, and math, I thought it would be a good idea to have this speaker's ceremony today to give you some insight into what it means to be a woman working in STEM, okay? And we'll have the 5 speakers speak approximately 10 minutes each. There'll be questions at the end. So I thought this was funny. You know, when you think about science, you think about technology, engineering, and math, here's a picture of Barbie and Barbie saying that math is hard. Well, why is Barbie saying math is hard? Is math really that hard? It's not that hard if you study. Nothing is really hard if you study. So I wanted to show, this is the current view. This is an ad I found from L'Oreal, the cosmetic and, I guess, hair dye manufacturer, who has instituted this whole program of encouraging young girls to get into science, okay? The other thing I thought was interesting is the idea of women in science is really important, and it's so important that the President of the United States has been engaged in this. So I have a clip here about a science fair that took place at the White House in 2012, where young girls were involved in particular science experiments, and they shared them with the President.
Ideas as old as America itself.
Okay, so I just wanted you to see, here's someone who is an actress, but in reality, she was a neuroscientist. I mean, so she decided that being a scientist was something she had even more passionate about than acting. So you might want to consider that. So we will now introduce our first guest speaker, Dr. Sarah Daisy Engoron, who will relate her experiences in the field of biology.
So my task today actually is difficult because in about 10 minutes, I'm going to tell you what it is like to work in the field that I've been trained to work in, and also give you something personal about what my experience has been. Why are we talking about STEM? Why is STEM so important? Well, I think this pretty much says it all. All of the jobs, the increase in jobs, will all be in STEM fields, and it's the way our world is moving. What is STEM? As you know, science, technology, engineering, and math. But now I have to say, do we even know specifically what science is? Because I am here representing science, but my experience is as a biologist. So you should keep in mind that science includes geology, astronomy, physics, chemistry, but I can only speak about my experience. What can you do with a biology degree? First of all, I wish I could give you a lot of time to really look at this slide because it's almost limitless. And you don't have to have a Ph.D. I did get a Ph.D., but from an associate's degree on through, there are all kinds of work to be done in the field of science. So a little bit about how did I get there? Well, I had to get a 4-year college degree first. You can go directly into a PhD program, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I'm going to show you that more clearly. So I got a master's degree first, and after that entered a PhD program. So this is when they ask me what my credentials are, what my education is, this is what you'll see on the flyer. And this is what I did. So now I'm going to show you what I really did. From entering college, spent 2 years in college, dropped out and got married, like, as I say, every good girl does. And keep in mind, my husband didn't drop out of school. I worked for a year, and then I went back then we moved to Albany, so my husband, who had finished college, could go to law school, where I worked for another year supporting him. And then I went to 2 more years of college and finished my bachelor's degree. Then I had, as you can see, by the time I finished college, you see that little baby there? I was already pregnant with my first child. Then before my master's degree started, I had 1 more child before I started my master's degree, and another child during my master's degree. And when I finished my master's degree, I had yet another child. As you can see, they're all boys. And then I finished my PhD. And what I did took 25 years, from the year I started college until the year I finished my PhD. Now, there are a couple of things I want to emphasize to you in my limited time here. It doesn't have to be this way, and I'm not really sorry. In a sense, my life worked out just fine. But please note, when you're a young woman, if you had said to me, well, what do you want to do? First of all, I had no goals, but I want you to know that my brothers did have specific goals. I came from an educated, liberal household. Yet somehow I got the same message that many young girls do, which is my brothers are goal-oriented and I want to get married and have children. But I want to tell you, the boys want to get married and have children too. And somehow they manage accomplishing that, getting married and having children. All right? So if I were to recap, did I know when I was in even high school? In high school, I had a different perception of myself. I had to do a dissection in biology, and I kid you not, I went, ooh. I became a molecular biologist in a very slow process of learning about myself. We tend to respond to the way the world sees us, and we don't really have any clue who we are at that young an age. Just to follow up on what happens when you do choose to work in the field of molecular biology, as I did. I got a PhD in molecular biology, but just like if you wanted to be a physician, you would graduate from medical school, you'd spend 4 years in college, and then you'd spend 4 years in medical school. And when you finished medical school, you would be a doctor. But trust me, you could not get a job anywhere. You would have to go work in a hospital as an intern and then a resident for at least another 3 or 4 years. Then you would be trained in your specific field and you would be able to get a job. Well, the same thing is true in science. When you get your graduate degree, your Ph.D., you're really not ready to get an official job anywhere. So you go and work in what's called as a postdoc if you want to work in research, which I did. So the postdoc, my postdoc, was at that research institute, which is associated with North Shore Hospital. It's right nearby. And for years, I worked on the effects of thyroid hormone on the heart and cardiovascular system. That's where you focus. If you were a physician, you might decide you want to be a pediatrician or you want to be a radiologist, and that's where you spend your time training. So this is how I spent my time training to do that very specific kind of research. All along, I always did teaching. Part-time teaching, including medical students who came through our facility and fellows and residents and community college students and four-year college students, lots of teaching. And of course, that's where I discovered really my first love became teaching. And that's why I'm here, starting my 3rd year. So let's say you work in this field. What do? I find most of the people I speak to have no idea what a molecular biologist does. And they would say, well, you must use a microscope a lot. I actually never use the microscope because a molecular biologist works with molecules, and molecules are too small to see. So we have indirect ways that we set up our experiments and then determine what the result is without actually looking at the individual molecules. So we use a pipettor a lot because we use really tiny volumes of liquids, and so we have to have very precise ways to measure them. You might be growing cells one day in the lab, and so you'd have to learn to do that very, very cleanly. We call that sterile technique, so you don't get any bacterial contamination in your cells. You might be loading a gel, doing this now. Many of the introductory labs in schools do gel electrophoresis, loading samples into a gel and running electric current through them so you can separate molecules by size. We routinely do this. You might use a microscope. If you're growing cells, you want to look at the microscope. Certainly cell biologists will spend some time with the microscope. You're always preparing solutions, the things that you need to use in the lab on a regular basis. And when you're do your experiments, then you're going to spend some time analyzing. And I have to tell you, I actually Googled myself and images, and lots of my figures came up from papers, but even scary rough drafts of papers. So you'd analyze your data and make a figure, and you'd perhaps put together all of your experimental data, and routinely we would present our data at a meeting, a national meeting or a regional meeting or a very small in-house meeting. And you would attend seminars regularly, same thing, national or local, where you might be the presenter, or you routinely listen to other people talk about their work, some of it very closely related to what you do, and some of it not, because a world of knowledge actually helps us in our specific fields more than you might realize. And then you have to write papers. You know that saying, publish or perish. So you write papers to report your studies. These are actually two of my fairly recent papers. And then you would publish those papers in a journal that's suitable for the kind of work that you are writing about. Those are the things that a scientist routinely does. So on any day, you might be doing experiments or analyzing data or writing papers, and sometimes all of those things at the same time. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to make a living. I used to say, I cannot believe that somebody pays me to think about the things that I like to think about. It's really an honor to get to that level of education where somebody pays you for your brains. I highly recommend it. And when you're a young woman, you start thinking about what it is that you want to do with your life. And please keep in mind, this is true for all of the boys here too, right? We come to this time in our lives where we think more seriously about what we want to do. But I cannot emphasize to you enough that this is really where it begins. And those early years are even more important than the later years, because you develop a sense of who you are when you're very young. And it's not just your family's view, in a sense, of you, or the way your family perceives you. It's the way the world perceives you. And when the world perceives you in a particular way, you start to see yourself that way. So at a very early age, we start to define what we're capable of. And I wish I could tell you, over those 25 years, I had some of those moments that changed my life. And I'll give you one briefly. I never thought I was very smart. I went to high school and I was a C student. I went to college because it was easy to get into college in those days. And then I was a C+ student. And then I dropped out of college and got married, decided to go back, and then I became a B+ student. And then I got really interested in biology, and I did a master's degree as entertainment. I finally had to finish because I didn't have enough time left. I had overextended the number of years that you could be at school to get a master's degree. So I said, all right, I guess I'll just finish up. It really wasn't until much later that I thought I could really do this seriously. By then, I was in my late 30s. Doesn't mean I wasn't capable of it when I was younger. When I was in a Ph.D. program, nobody was a better student than I was. I got A's in everything because I lived it and breathed it and I loved it. And the one quick story before I leave you, when I transferred during my college years, I showed up late for a meeting where we were being told what requirements there were to get a BA in biology, that's the Bachelor of Arts, or a BS in biology, that's a Bachelor of Science. Well, I had already decided that I would get a BA because a BS would be too hard for me. When I got to the meeting late, the discussion was only about getting a BS. So I raised my hand and I said, I'm sorry, I wanted to know about getting a BA. And the teacher said, oh, I'm sorry, it's just that no one in the room was interested in a BA before you arrived, so we didn't discuss it. And in that moment, I looked around that room and I said, if they can do it, I can do it. And it's those moments that happen in that unpredictable time that can change the course of your life. All right, and the last thing, because we're lots of people with lots of great stories, this is the last thing I want to leave you with, and I can't tell you how important this is. It's not who you are that holds you back, it's who you think you're not.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is going to be one of my former colleagues and good friend, Miss Rika Johnson from the Con Edison Company of New York. Rika.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rika Johnson. I'm with Con Edison. I'm going on my 23rd year with Con Edison. So I don't want this to be a recurring theme that my journey to this point was not a straight path either. So I came to this country at 16 years old. Right before I came here, I came from Grenada, West Indies. So what we have as a graduate of high school is to sit O-level exams. We follow the British system. So I came here after taking 8 O-levels. So the results weren't out yet, and I left to come to America to start a new life. So I was 16, graduated high school in Grenada, but too young for college over here. So the decision was either I could go on to college or by taking the GED, because the American system do not recognize the O-level results from the Caribbean. So my family decided that I'll go to high school. So I was enrolled in high school in Brooklyn, and they put me in the 10th grade. Not because I didn't do well on the entrance exams, but they said that the English system is a year behind the American system. So Form 5 in Grenada is equivalent to the 11th grade here, and a year behind, which brings you to 10th grade. So my first week of high school, I'm in 10th grade, and I'm like, I just had physics and chemistry O-levels. This is crazy. So my family went to the school, and finally they put me to the 11th grade. So I spent 2 years in high school here. But STEM, and I wish, if I know then what I know now, my school of choice would be Villanova, because I'm in love with that university. But in high school, I was always good in math, I was always good in sciences, graduated high school, started looking into college maybe my senior year in high school. Didn't go to the guidance counselor, didn't get really into the system. Most of it was because I was bored. I was into soap operas. I was leaving school, cutting my 8th period class so I can get home to watch soap operas. I was getting the cut sheets in the mail. But now, if I knew then what I know now, we'll have a different conversation. Graduated after 2 years, 6th in my class. After cutting 8th period, and I still graduated 6th in my class. Didn't know what I wanted to do in college. My father said he was not paying for liberal arts. Took 6 months off, just doing nothing. Didn't know what I wanted to do in college. My father was not paying. I was talking to people. My cousins were helping me out. So finally, I got bored staying home. I wanted to be a pharmacist. I don't know where pharmacy came from, but I enrolled as a pharmacist. My first class was biology. Sorry, Sarah. I got in biology. I'm like, this is not me. This is not me. This is not working. Went back home. I was speaking to my cousin. I had a cousin a little older than I was. So he said, he brought me this article about computer drafting. He said, New York Tech is starting this new program, computer drafting. You're good in math, you're good in science. Why don't you go and find out about it? So I went down to New York City Tech, downtown Brooklyn, found out about the program, and I signed up. Started that January. I'm like, wow. Pretty interesting, doing drafting. We were using the board doing drafting, got back into math and physics, and it was working out. I found my niche. A year and a half in, it was over the Christmas break, I'll never forget. One of my professors called me. He said, Con Ed is looking for computer drafters, and I gave them your name. Get your resume ready, January 3rd, be there at 8 o'clock. And my story starts to unfold. Did my resume, had no idea what a resume was, got help, put something together, went down to Con Ed. It was a month later, on my birthday, February 4th, I got a call from Con Ed. Come down to work, you're hired. Went to Con Ed, I was a co-op, I had another year to go with my associate's degree. And they kept extending my employment with them. But part of the program was that I have to be in school at least half time. So after graduating with my computer drafting degree, I went to mechanical technology because it was a 2-year school. While at Con Ed, one of my supervisors, I remember saying to him, what's your degree in? And he said, mechanical engineering. I said, okay. that's interesting because I want your job. And I finished my mechanical technology. It took another year. So I had my associates in computer drafting and another associates in mechanical technology. By the time I finished my mechanical technology, Con Ed said, okay, we have a spot opening. Somebody's retiring. We would like to hire you as a drafter. I said, okay, thank you. So I got hired in Con Edison as a drafter. So now I took another semester off because Con Ed has tuition aid. So, but you get it after 3 months in the company, you're eligible for the tuition aid. Okay, took 3 months off from school, and I'm still speaking to people. My associates in mechanical technology, I can transfer that to a 4-year school and go to engineering school. So that's exactly what I did. After my 3-month probation period, I enrolled in New York Institute of Technology in the mechanical engineering program. But before that, I got married. And like Sarah, I had a baby in between. So that was one of the biggest struggles, because now I have a baby, I'm married, and I'm halfway through my engineering degree. But that didn't stop me because my in-laws were so instrumental. Right before I had my daughter, they retired and they were the caregiver for my daughter. So even though I had to drive from Queens, because by then we were living in Queens, from Queens to Brooklyn to drop her off, and then drive to Manhattan to get to work for 7 o'clock, and then drive to Old Westbury in Long Island to go to school, I had the support that I needed to go to school. So when your parents tell you I'm paying your tuition, just help out and go to school, please do it. Because working full-time, having a young child, and going to school full-time, because going part-time in engineering school is probably about 12 years. So you have to know how to balance it, how to juggle your life, because I was getting the tuition aid, so not working wasn't an option, because you also want a life for yourself, for your family, and doing that is by working. So you have to learn to juggle and balance. And as Sarah said, if you want it, you're gonna do it. If it's something that you really want, you're gonna put the energy in to get it. So, had my daughter, still in engineering school part-time, working full-time, then got pregnant again, had my son. But my goal was, before he was born, to graduate. And so in December '98, I received my mechanical engineering degree, and he was born August the following year. But that took a lot of commitment, because I went to summers, I went to the winter breaks, took 14 credits. So you have to set your goals. You have to have your goals and what you want out of it. Had the kids, still working with Con Ed, and in the meantime, while at Con Ed, I started as a drafter. So I'm going on 23 years with Con Ed, and I'm probably in 12 different jobs. Because it's so many opportunities at Con Ed that you do not have to stay stagnant. So I've moved, keep getting greater and greater responsibilities, moving up in roles while I'm going to school. So after I got the degree, I positioned myself now to go from union to management. And that was the piece of paper that I needed, the effort I needed to go from a weekly position to a management position. And once I had that, started going through the management titles, I said, wait, but I want to go further. I want a business degree, because having an engineering degree, I need to know how the business runs. So after my son, I said, when my son goes to school at 3 years old, I'm going to start back on to get my master's degree. And that's what I did. But in addition to the traditional school, Con Ed has a lot of programs and training that they give us. So I'm a mechanical engineer. We had an 18-month program to learn about the electric side of the business. Then in gas operations, we have these 18-month classes and 8-week classes, like training that you can do work-related. So education is not only in the classroom here. Everything, learning is an education. And it's continuous growth. And it's what you want to do with your life. Do you want to settle for the associate's degree, settle for the bachelor's degree? And just now, in today's society, you're hearing so many people with PhDs and masters and bachelors. I remember back in the early 90s, if you had an associate's degree, you were considered experienced and qualified. Now, if you don't have a master's degree, you're competing. The competition out there is so great now. As a woman in engineering, in most of my classes, I was the only girl. In a lot of my classes, I was the only girl. And it was twofold, because all the guys wanted to show that they can help you. They want to do things for you. Like I remember I had to take a concrete class, and the guy's like, I'll help you, I'll carry it for you. But you want to show them too that I can do it better than you can. You know, like you want to be hands-on. You just don't want to be in engineering or technology and just sit there and do the academic or the paper part of it. You want to get dirty and see how things actually happen. I'm going to talk a little bit about my current state. I'm a mechanical engineer by training. Right now, a year ago, I totally switched careers. I'm in facilities management currently. After the World Trade Center and we had the fire downtown and a lot of firefighters died trying to fight a fire downtown Manhattan, Bloomberg enacted this law where any building over 100 feet needs to install a sprinkler system in the building. So my current job now is to do that for headquarters at Irving Place. So now I'm learning the building codes. I have architects working for me that's designing the building. I'm learning things that I never thought I'd be interested in. And what's making it easier, the transition, is the engineering technical training that I had. So even though I'm in a different job, something that's totally new to me, the concept remains the same. Because once your mind is thinking in the science and technology field, that makes it so much easier to adapt and to get it and to grasp it. And that's one of the things that I love about Con Edison. I've had the opportunity in 22 years to do so many things, like to travel so many places in this country because of being a woman in engineering. Because even at work, a lot of times I'll be the only female until Jenny and Nadine showed up 9 years later. I was the only woman in the office that's doing engineering work or technical work. We had females in the office, but on the administrative side. So when Jenny and Nadine walked in, and I'll never forget, in 1998, they walked in. I'm like, wow, young women is coming in to the department. So leaving high school and being where I am today, I had no idea. Even though I was good in math and science, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life or in life. You know, it came because of, one, the opportunities that I had and just talking to people. So my daughter is a senior in high school now, and she wants to do biology, she wants to get into education, but my focus in her is not, what do you want to do? I need to know what you want to do. Just talk to people, visit the schools, see what you want to do. Go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to do at 17 years old, and I'm not expecting her to know what she wanted to do at 17 years oh. But at 17, at least she has an idea of what path she wants to take. So I just want to, the message that I want to leave to you guys are, know what your goal is. Know what you want in life. And set the bar really high for yourself. And don't get dejected, because the world is not a pretty place. I'm here to tell you that. The world is not a pretty place, but if the goals you set for yourself is high, you'll get there.
Thank you, Rika. Our next guest is Miss Nadine South. Oh, Jenny, you want to speak? Oh,
Keep it in order.
they told me before they were going to change the order. Okay. Okay. Jenny's been here before, so she knows the deal.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So my story is going to be quite similar, and then with a bit of a different spin. So I'm the oldest of 3 daughters. My parents are from Dominican Republic, and unlike the other 2 speakers, since I can remember, I always wanted to be an engineer. And the main reason was because I had some male cousins who were engineers, and they had pretty interesting stories. So for some reason, I kind of gravitated towards that. And then I had this love affair with buildings and structures and how they looked. So civil engineering kind of fit. So from high school, I went to a technical high school, always focusing on science and math, and then obviously I was pretty good at it, so I kind of just stayed in that direction. I went to college, and like Rika, I was one of very few women in the school. But what's interesting is that for my freshman year in college, there were a lot of students, and then as time went by, there were much less and less students, so definitely the women dropped out, the men dropped out. So the main thing about engineering that has helped me and given me a background is the ability to do problem solving, to understand problems, to analyze when you have an issue, look for a solution, and execute it to make it work, to make it happen. That's the main thing about engineering and having a technical degree. And I think you can relate that to anywhere you go, any career, any job. So then I graduated college, and I immediately went into Con Edison, and I have 15 years in the company. So when I joined Con Edison, I thought I'd be there for a couple of years, and I'm there 15 years later still. So when I went to Con Edison, that's where I really felt that there were less women in operations. And I went to gas operations, and I was a supervisor in construction, female supervisor in construction, the only one at that time in Queens gas operations. Taking care of the Queens gas system. I was also supervisor in the emergency response group. I worked rotating shift. There were times on the weekends and on holidays when I was the only one. There were no managers, there were no planners, there was no one. It was just me as a supervisor and whatever crews we had on at the time. So like Rika said, the good thing about the company is that you have the ability to go to many different departments and learn, because we're such a big company. We cover so many different areas. So I went to engineering, and then the bad part about engineers, you know, and sometimes, you know, I kind of like hammer the engineering guys and girls, is that the engineers have this tendency to want to build the best possible thing, and they don't think about cost. What's it gonna cost? And when you relate that to the marketplace, like when you have a phone or a computer, you can have the best running computer, but if the cost is $1 million, no one's gonna buy it. So we have the same issues on money and on cost. And again, our engineers, we have that tendency to forget about cost. So at that time, what I always wanted to do for myself and for my career is try to do something that would make me unique, different, because we're such a company built on engineers. All of us, the majority, are engineers, and that's what the company hires for a reason. So I wanted some way to make myself stand out from the other engineers. So at that time, I was thinking about cost, and then I was thinking about Wall Street and investing and money. So I wanted to get an MBA in finance and investments, which was kind of merging the engineering world with the finance world. So I got my MBA, and then afterwards, I wanted to go to Wall Street, leave the company totally, make a 180-degree turn to a different career. But internally, I was able to meet the treasurer of the company, and then I was able to have the best and my favorite job of all time, which was working for the Treasury Department internally in the company. And what the Treasury Department does is raise cash and money. So I was able to issue stocks and bonds in the amount of $400 million. And what's funny is that in college, I would have people looking at me because I was one of the few female in the classroom going for an engineering degree. And then I go to the finance group, in the treasury group, and they're looking at me saying, what are you, an engineer, doing in finance? You should be out in operations. So it's just to let you know that everywhere you go, someone's going to have a question. And once you have a story to make yourself stand out and be unique, I think that will give you an edge over anyone else. So then I left the Treasury Department and went to become a section manager, managing a department. I've managed an inspection department. I've managed a construction department up in Westchester. And it's still a bit funny when we go to the location. Rika, you remember when we have these incidents and you have these two women pulling up at the location, running the show? We still get those. So one of the things that I know Mike likes me to talk about is that yes, the degree and the technical part and the science part and the technology part is important. What happens is that as you get promoted or as you go higher in your career, you start to use those skills less. They're still there, you can grasp the concepts and the issues quickly, but you don't get the chance to work on the day-to-day stuff because as you become an executive and you're higher, you're using more your communication skills, your ability to speak to people, your ability to write, because now you're in charge of relaying the message, giving people what the plans are, what the goals are, how to execute it, and make sure that people are motivated to get it done. So right now, that's what I find myself relying mostly on, communication. There's so many presentations I give to so many different people, it just becomes a part of you. So you gotta be able to mesh those two worlds. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Jenny. And my other former colleague, Ms. Nadine Southwell from Con Edison. She's the last speaker from Con Ed, for those of you. Thank you, Nadine.
Good afternoon. Where shall I begin? As most of us already mentioned, that except for Jenny, I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do. All I knew is that as a young child, I just had a knack of taking things apart and putting them back together. I always used to get into a fight with my older brother because I would take his toys or his electronics and take them apart and put them back. Sometimes they wouldn't work, sometimes they would work, and we'd get into a big fight. And I just had a knack of doing that and loving that. Then when I continued to do that, around this time I was living in England. Around 14, I moved over to New York. And when I started school, still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So they had an after-school program, and it was called Sponsors for Educational Opportunities. I still believe it's a program that's still running in Manhattan. But basically, it's an after-school program for young children who are interested in engineering, business, any type of degree that you're interested in, but they would pool all the kids together who are interested in different areas. So because I was good in math and science, that's where I was leaning towards, I ended up in the engineering group. And that was instrumental to me at that point because we were visiting engineering companies, we were shadowing people during the day while doing engineering type work. And that's kind of when I made the decision that, I think this is for me. In addition to being in an after-school program, I was involved in a lot of programs in high school, like NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers, SWE, Society of Women Engineers, and some other programs. So I was already molded somewhat in high school, and that's what I wanted to do. So when I left high school, I first attended Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and that just continued to helped me figure out, what I wanted to do. First of all, I figured I wanted to do civil engineering. I kind of leaned towards mechanical engineering. About a year or so in RPI, I went to City College, because as much as I loved RPI, it was very expensive, especially for a foreign student. So I went to City College, and while I was there in City College, I continued with those organizations that I mentioned, NSBE and SWE, and some honor societies. While I was there, I did a few internships, which I found through NSBE during their conferences. One was with Air Products in Pennsylvania, and I did a short stint with GE. When I graduated from City College, I wanted to work in the automotive industry. That's where my passion was at first. I loved mechanical engineering, I loved finite element analysis, and actually got a job with Delphi in Saginaw, Michigan. However, I went out there and I saw where their factory is and how desolate it looked, and I changed my mind and said I had to find something in New York. Then I applied for Con Ed, but Con Ed took a very long time to get back to me. So during that time, I worked with Air Products, who I told you I did a previous internship with. And I was with them for a few months until Con Ed called me and said, we are offering you a position. So the position that they offered me at the time, this is when I met Jenny in 1998, was the gas intern program. And it's actually a really great program because for 2 years you get the opportunity to rotate around all the different departments within gas operations. And that's good because, you'll start working and you kind of have an idea what you want to do, but you're not really sure. So this gave me an opportunity to see what departments were there in gas and where the best fit was for me once I, left the program. So for the first year, we rotated through central gas operations, which could have been corrosion. That's where I met Mike Dolan first. Gas control, engineering, and in the last year, you did 2 6-month assignments, one in gas operations, in construction, and the next 6 months is in gas distribution services. In gas operations, construction, like Jenny said, you are out there as a supervisor, working with mechanics who have 30 years of service. So here's a young lady, this was Jenny and I, a young lady supervising men who have 30 years of service. That was challenging for many. And I have to say, in my experience, my experience was great because of the relationship I had with the mechanics. Sometimes you'll have intern or people who are in the program supervising these mechanics, and they have this attitude like, I'm your boss, do as I say kind of thing. And you can't have that attitude. And when we speak to a lot of interns at Con Edison, I'll tell them the same thing. You have to approach them to say that, yes, I am the supervisor, but I'm also here to learn. And you have to have that type of relationship with them, because if you have that relationship where do as I say kind of thing, they'll make your life misery and they'll purposely do things wrong. And obviously you're the supervisor, so it looks bad on you. So I had a great 6 months experience in construction and GDS with the mechanics. After that, I had increasing responsibilities. I was an engineering supervisor in the engineering department. One of the things that I can remember about that job was that when I applied for that job, someone, again, who had 35 years of experience was going for that job. And I got the job. I only had 5 years in the company, and he was working for me now. So I had problems with that person for a very long time. But there were ways that, I was able to communicate with him and just kind of see eye to eye and say, you know what, I understand that you may have these feelings, but, we're here to do a job. And I cannot say that I have all your experience, I obviously do not, but we need to do a job and I need to learn from you. And as time progressed, our relationship became, better. During that time, I also got married at that time after, while I was actually an engineering supervisor. I took a different track though. I got married, and after that, I also decided that I needed to get my MBA because I wanted to be more marketable. Like Jenny, I didn't think I was going to be in Con Ed for too long, and I'm here 15 years later. But I said, you know what, if I'm going to go to another department, I don't want to be stuck in engineering. I want the ability to do something else. So that's why I decided to obtain my MBA at that time. And after I obtained my MBA, after that, then I had 3 children, 3 boys, similar to Sarah. Oh, Sarah, you had 4 boys, right? And now currently, I work in gas quality assurance. So basically, we have to make sure that gas operations in compliance with the federal, state, and local codes. So this is a job where you really need to know the backbone of gas operations. You need to be familiar with all the specs and codes. It's an opportunity for me to, although I'm not in operations anymore, supervising like I used to, I'm able to go out in the field and still meet with the mechanics and make sure they're complying with the specs and the codes. Also, a lot of writing, and this is where the writing part comes into play. You know, as Jenny mentioned, as engineers, you know, we were taught how to think and have that analytical thinking, but sometimes our communication and writing skills may not be up to par. And definitely the job that I'm doing now, that really forces me, and I encourage all of you to if you're staying within the STEM areas, that you really need to brush up on your communication and your writing skills, because they're very important. And as you begin to work in any corporation, those are the things that you really have to work on as well. And for many years, I've done many presentations, whether it's been while I was in the intern program or just in my day-to-day job. There's a lot of presentations and communications that you have to do, communicating to a lot of people. So what I can say about my experience is that I wouldn't change it. You know, I've had, some, things where you've had to balance your life, whether it's your family life and your work life, but I wouldn't change it for the world. Engineering was something that at first I may not have known, but I was leaning towards. And as I said, I encourage you all to stick with it, to hone in on your communication and your writing skills, because all of that will come into play when you begin to work in corporate America. Thank you.
Okay, our last speaker is Dr. Franco from the Mathematics and Computer Science Department. Dr. Franco.
I was freezing down there, so it's going to take me like a minute to warm up. I actually prepared a PowerPoint and offering a more personal view, really showing people my choices and how I have ended up where I am today. Before I start and while I warm up, I want to say something about the picture of the Barbie saying that math is hard. It was real. At some time, the company that produces Barbie put a Barbie in the market that could talk. And the Barbie had, of course, unrecorded messages. And one of the messages was, math is hard. Of course, they have to take it out of the market. Everybody complained about it, all professional associations, the Association of Women in Math, like everybody complained about it. And I actually read about this. Don't remember the source, but I remember that the conversation was about diversity and the positive impact of diversity. And this was cited as an example. They probably didn't have enough women or highly trained women in the panel that was making decisions about this new product. So, there are a lot of stories like that, where if you think about the lack of diversity and how these have led to really bad business decisions. So anyway, now I'm gonna go into my own, to my personal story. So how can I make this larger? Can I play it?
It's PDF, so.
It's a PDF. Yeah, here. There you go. Okay, and then I figure if I, yeah. Okay, so you will wonder, what can you do with a math major? It's hard. Many people still wonder, what can you do with a math major? Most people don't think of mathematics as a door that could lead you into many profitable careers. They think of mathematics as a subject that you study in school, but you see no future behind it. So I'm just going to share my journey with you today. And then at the end, we're going to have questions, right? Okay. Like everybody's stories, mine start when I was young, in my family. I'm the youngest of 3 children, the only girl. My mother is a single mother. I grew up in Colombia, South America. In fact, I did all my schooling, grade school and college in Colombia, South America. Came here when I was starting graduate school. This is a picture of the people that made me, my father and my mom. They were only boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. So they have 2 chaperones, my great aunt and my aunt. So anyway, my mother and my father have 3 children. They never got married. In fact, they never lived together. But we have a very safe environment at home while he was alive. But he died. He died when I was in kindergarten. And that's when the family really started to struggle financially. My mother got really scared. She lost her job. She always worked, but then she lost her job after he passed. And she decided to travel to Venezuela. At the time, Venezuela was the rich neighboring country, and it still is because of the oil industry. So she went to Venezuela, where she actually worked in many different jobs. She was a maid first for a family, then she went to work as a babysitter at a special institution for children with special needs, and she did, a variety of jobs as an immigrant worker in Venezuela. I did all of my elementary school in Colombia while my mom was away, and my great aunt and my aunt were looking after me and my brothers. My mother came back when I was in 5th grade, finishing my elementary school. And then she started making all the decisions about our schooling and the way we were supposed to be brought up. It was funny because my mother never finished high school. She had to start working when she was 15 to help her mother raise the younger sisters. My grandmother also didn't finish high school, didn't finish elementary school. She only did up to 2nd grade because my great-grandfather thought that women didn't need education. So my grandmother only learned to read and write at the 2nd grade level, which in those times is not like today. Today's kids are learning to read and write in kindergarten. So she didn't have a lot of education. And she made a living as a single mother of 4 girls cooking. She sold food in the farmer's market, or she cooked at home and sold food at her home. So my mother didn't have any background, didn't have a big vision for her own children. She thought that the biggest accomplishment for her as a mother was to provide for us and get us through high school. If we graduated from high school, that was a big success for her. And that's what she had in mind. So for my own high school, for example, she chose a school that was safe. She was more worried about me being the girl and being brought up properly, whatever that meant. She wasn't thinking about the school that would be the strongest academically, for example. In fact, she was afraid of putting me in the high school that was the strongest academically, because it was also the school in which people were more like rebel, and students would go on strikes and participate in all these kind of activities. So she was very worried. She put me in a school where, as you go through the curriculum, they also teach you how to type in a typewriter and how to answer the phone. So she thought, maybe when she finished high school, she can work as a secretary and then she can make a living. That was really the standards that she had for me. Let me go But then something very special happened when I was in my senior year of high school. And I actually only learned the full story recently, like a year ago, talking to my mother. My two brothers, they are twins, they graduated before me, 2 years before me. When they finished high school, again, there were no goals, just finish high school, get a job. One of them went on to do the mandatory military service, and the other one got exempted because the twin brother was going, so he didn't have to go, so he got a job. And he got a job in the construction company where my mom was working as a secretary. And he was away for a year at a construction site out of the state. But then one day, my mom's boss, who was an engineer, started talking to her like, hey, how are your kids doing? What are they doing? So when he heard that my brothers have graduated high school and were doing just, getting jobs, or he thought it was a big mistake. And he told my mom, I don't know how. You're alone raising these kids. You're the man and the mother at the same time. You have to figure it out, but you have to put them through college. You have to put your kids through college. So she told my brothers, when you come back from the military and the other one, after a year, working in this company, you gotta go to college. It was then their problem to figure it out, but you have to go to college. But I was in my senior year, and then she said, you have to go to college. That was it. No instructions. It was like an order, and we were raised up to follow orders. We never challenged my mom. But I actually was a pretty good student in school. I was a pretty good student in every subject, yet nobody was talking to me about college. Nobody ever talked to me about college when I was in high school, or careers. There were no counselors or academic advisors for us. So you were really, really left on your own. And we have this amazing opportunity that my mom somehow found this mentor or person who actually cared about her and her family. So anyway, that's how college came to me. I was in my senior year. My mom says, you have to go to college. So I say, okay. The only opportunity, of course, was going to the public university in our hometown. I got the catalog from that university, and I read all the majors and what is the outlook for people who finish one major versus another. And I did a lot of soul searching and tried to figure out what is it that I want to do with my life. And as some of you have pointed out, at 17 or 18, you don't know. It's hard to know. And honestly, you don't need to know. You don't have to decide the rest of your life now. Doesn't make sense. But you definitely have to think about the next steps, the most immediate steps. But at the time, I didn't know that. So I really thought I was deciding the rest of my life. And I said, what can I do for the rest of my life and enjoy it? And I was like, oh, this is hard. But I did it by elimination. It's like, okay, teaching. I realized I love teaching. I was always a peer tutor, was involved in a lot of activities in school. So I realized teaching was my passion. But I said, teaching what? I was very good in every subject, and then I did the enjoyment part, until I realized it's math. It's like I can see myself talking, doing, or teaching mathematics forever and not get tired of it or bored with it. I know, it doesn't happen to everybody, but you can love it too. So anyway, that was the choice I made. I said, I'm gonna be a math major. I told my mother. She went, what? Everybody in my family complains, like, there is no way you're gonna waste your life doing math. What is that? I had an older cousin who sat me down, and he actually pointed his finger. And he told me, you're never gonna finish that. And you're gonna be starving for life. Again, because people have no clue what you can do with a math major. They thought, at most, you'll get to teach maybe in some school, but you're not gonna make money with it. But I don't know why. I wasn't scared. And at the same time, I don't know why my mom didn't fight too hard. After a while, she said, okay. Again, I find out just a year ago, the whole story. Her boss told her to let me do it. When she told her boss, like, can you believe it? Like, she wants to be a math major. He said, let her be. We don't know what the world holds for her. Let her be. So that's how she settled it. And anyway, to college I went. It was hard. really, even though my brothers and I went to a public university and it was local, which, a lot of expenses you don't have to incur into if you live in your house and just take the bus to school, but it was over our budget. It was very hard. I worked the whole time. Initially, I was a tutor, a grader, a teaching assistant, a computer lab assistant within the school. At some points, I have to get a job. And I did. I worked as a middle school teacher in a local school. In fact, the picture in the bottom is, that was the class I was responsible for. I was teaching 4 different groups of 6th and 7th graders, and these were the students I was responsible for. It was like I was the teacher for their homeroom. I don't know how they call it here in the US, something like that. Very busy time, very hard, actually. It did slow me down, but I made it. And when I was in college, there was a German professor in the math department in my university in Columbia. And he was the first one who talked to me about graduate school. I didn't know there was anything beyond a master's. Didn't even hear about PhDs or doctoral degrees. But this German professor, he saw the potential. He became my mentor, and he was the first one to tell me, you can do a PhD. But then you have to go somewhere else. We didn't have PhDs in mathematics in Columbia at the time. So from the very beginning, he planted the seed, you can go and get a PhD, and you'll have to go somewhere. He thought he would send me to Germany, but actually I came to the US to pursue graduate education. I went to Cornell University. I got my master's and my PhD in applied mathematics there. And many years. It took me many years to get there. It took me many years to complete my degree. I was married very young. I married another Colombian mathematician. We were together for 10 years. And at some point, he got sick. He got cancer, so I have to stop school, care for my husband, then went back to school and finished. But let me tell you, it was so much fun. In fact, the best time of your life, I think, is when you are a student. As hard as it is and as challenging as it is, it's the most fun time. And I don't know if everybody will agree, but once you become a professional, once you get responsibilities, it's a different life. I still enjoy what I do. It's my passion, but let me tell you, the happy days of being a student, even if you're married, are gone. So I can't find any pictures of me studying really hard. All the pictures I could find through school are partying with my friends, going places with friends. So, camping at a music festival in upstate New York with friends. Actually, nobody in these pictures is a math major. I'll show you the math majors later. Just partying in my friends' houses or in, other places. This is me when I graduated, celebrating with friends. My friends were also at the time in the PhD program in applied math. One of them is a Cuban and the other one is Chicana. And then the big picture is me when I first arrived to Queensboro, fresh from graduate school. Once you become a professional, you start taking a lot more responsibilities. The personal choice that I made when I was very young, and I never looked back, in fact, I really got it right. My passion is teaching. I knew I wanted to teach at the college level. I knew I wanted to be a college professor. And I have been very involved in promoting STEM and mathematics to women and minorities in general. So I usually work with summer research programs. The picture on the left top is a group of 16 women that I worked with during a summer at George Washington University. We were doing research projects and just showing women the many types of careers they can have if they have a math major. Then I am at a conference with a friend also who is a mathematician, more students that I mentor, minority students in STEM, work that I have done with people from other colleges and universities nationwide. I have a life, despite all these many years of work and the work and responsibilities now as a professor. I have fun, I have hobbies, I have other interests. These are all things that I've done here in New York with the students or on my own. Got married, have children, have children, sorry. I haven't missed out on anything. I really can tell you, and you won't miss out on anything. I think higher education will only expand your horizons. Is really a process. You don't have to know it all on day one, nor day two. You really make yourself as you go along. This is true personally and professionally. Nobody will expect you to be the inventor the first year you go to college. It could be daunting sometimes to see all these figures of people who are excelling at a very young age, but nobody got there in a day. It's, people have been exposed to things over a period of years, and it takes time, and we can all get there, wherever it is that we want to go to. These are friends now that I have from the neighborhood, from high school, from my program in mathematics in Colombia. As I'm emphasizing, you are not going to miss out on anything. If anything, life is only going to get better if you pursue higher education and really look for some high standards in terms of professional development. Life goes on. The bottom picture shows, it was taken here at Queensboro with some of my colleagues from the math department and also some of my research students from the last summer research program in which I participated. And that's all for pictures. Believe me, I wish I have some pictures starting really hard, but I don't have any. But I did my hard starting. And I wish to take questions later. Yeah.
So now we have a few more moments before we have to vacate this room, but anyone have any questions for our panel, for our guests?
After a while, you start realizing that this company and the issues that we have and what we deal with on a day-to-day basis kind of can consume you. So it becomes your life, 24/7, because of the industry that you're in, providing energy, gas, electric, and steam, and how that's important to people. So for me, I got tired of dealing with always socializing with engineers, and I wanted to go and do something in finance with the investment bankers, the Citibank, the JP Morgans, the Bank of New York. So that's what it really was for me, just to have a different experience and do something else. But what I realized after talking to some people internally is that I didn't have to leave the company to go into that type of field or that type of job. We're such a big company and we have so many different departments and expertises that opportunity was there inside.
So I never wanted to leave because I was married at 21. I had my first job at 26. My husband also works for Con Edison. Con Edison is a company where you have a lot of opportunities, you do what you're supposed to do, you're gonna have a good life. You're not gonna be a millionaire, but you can have a good life because you have that stability. And from my point of view, I'm there going on 23 years, they will have to kick me out screaming for me to leave. Because I had the opportunity to do so much that I don't see going, I don't know anything else. I don't know anything else.
Anybody else have any questions? Only because there's another class coming in here at 2:10 and we need to vacate the room soon, so. Yes.
Was teaching the only thing you were interested in the mathematics department?
No. Can you hear me? Maybe I don't need this. No, it's not. I have a lot of interest, and I try to pursue them. And interest also in social issues and bringing about social change. So I try to find intersections between the work that gets me a salary and other passions. So, for example, I work at the intersection of math and social justice. There are many things that I enjoy actually doing. I think something that we have in common, or anybody who pursues STEM, is the love for learning, right? So learning new things and getting involved in new projects, I do that all the time, in fact, yeah. But let me just, but there are so many things you can do with a math major, and I didn't even look into them. For example, I have friends from graduate school who now work for Wall Street or banks internationally. I have friends who work for Google, Motorola, and all these companies designing all these devices that we all use. So there are so many things you can do with a math major or with high training in mathematics. I knew I wanted to be rooted at a higher education institution. You can work in the industry, you can do many other things.